All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Fragnito, and we have an excellent real estate investor and business leader today, Martin Perdomo. How are we doing today, Martin?
I'm doing outstanding, brother. Thank you so much, Aaron, for having me on your show, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here, and I've enjoyed our conversations beforehand as well. It's really interesting what you got going on, a lot of different things, and your business model has a lot of similarities with ours as well. So we'll probably be able to share some exciting stories here. But so Martin, what do you focus on doing, and what are you guys up to over there?
So just a little context, a little bit about me. Aaron, I've been investing since 2007. I bought my first investment property, my first duplex in 2007.
Sure.
And I used to be in the mortgage business. I was a mortgage guy, giving away all the easy money back in the subprime days. I was people would knock on my door, and I literally remember, Aaron, telling people I was kind of an arrogant kid in a way.
Yeah.
I remember telling people, hey, if you don't like my rates, because we were doing those ARMs, those ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets,
that's what got us in trouble. That's what got the whole market in trouble, man.
Yeah.
Selling crap loans.
Yeah, I literally remember telling people coming to my office, hey, if you don't like my interest rates, because we were giving 11% or 10% 2-year ARMs, brother, back then, right? No income. Those were the rates. And I remember telling people, you don't like my rates? I don't care. Bye. Go to the next person. Like, it was like that. Like, it was that's arrogance. I would never do that now, but that's what it was. It was easy to make money back in those days.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what it was. I bought my first investment in 7 because I saw so many people. I was helping so many people. And I had this fear, which is kind of what's happening right now and what happened last year. When I say last year, I'm talking about 2021. It's what happened last year in 2021, where investors, so-called investors, were buying properties because everyone else was doing it, and they thought that we were going to run out of property. So I remember we part of our distribution model here at Skill Property Finders is that we flip. So I remember people, so-called investors, buying my retail properties, paying me $50,000 over asking, and they were so-called investors. And I'm like, how are you penciling these numbers? They just don't make sense.
Right.
So that was me then in 2007, bought my first property. 2 years later, 2009, it was $100,000 in the water in a duplex, my first duplex. And I had no experience. I knew nothing, Aaron. I just bought it because everyone else was doing it, like a lot of people did last year. They did it because everyone else was doing it. And because I was the mortgage broker, at the closing, I made 15 grand. So picture that. You buy an asset, cash flowing asset, and you walk away with 15 grand at the table, and you walk away with the asset. I did something really creative. I am a creative guy. So we did some creative stuff. And sure enough, man, 2 years later, 100,000 on the water. And that was tough, man. It was tough surviving that.
At People's Capital Group, we help you invest in real estate. Build your wealth by owning professionally managed apartment buildings in the northern New Jersey market. We want to show you how owning real estate is attainable, even for the busy professionals that don't have the time or experience investing in real estate. Now, we only work with select people who are serious about building wealth. So find out if you qualify at peoplescapitalgroup.com.
But here's fast forward. I'm fast forward 14 years later. I bought a quad, which it was a surprise quad. We bought a triplex literally a few blocks away from the office.
Right.
And I was like, that basement, we're going to turn it into an apartment. I saw the meter base. It was an apartment at one point. We emptied it out. We emptied out the basement, and boom, the kitchen, everything was there. So there was so much junk in there.
Wow. There was so much crap in the basement. You didn't know there was a kitchen.
We didn't know there was a kitchen and a bathroom, brother. So
wow.
It was all there. It's beautiful now. We're almost done with it.
Yeah.
And so we got a bonus. So anyways, as I'm buying that, this was in October. I bought it on Halloween. I closed on it. In September, beginning of October, the appraiser comes to my office to come pick up the check. He's going to go appraise that. So he's sitting across my desk, Aaron, and I ask him, hey, what are you going to evaluate that property when I'm done doing the rehab, right? When I'm done stabilizing it and everything. Yeah. He goes, I don't know, but he gives me this manila envelope with a bunch of comps. And in this comps, I'm looking through, there's a comp 2 doors down from that property I told you I bought in 07.
Yeah.
Right. exact same property, exact same size. I mean, they used to make those things.
Yeah, same
1800, same block, everything the same.
cookie cutter.
And yep. And I look at this 385 sold a month before, right? And the lesson, it was a reminder for me, and it should be a reminder for all of us as investors, is that real estate is very forgiving long term. We're going into a time in real estate right now where things are already unstable in the financial capital markets, in the capital markets. Things are unstable in the capital markets. We're seeing declines across everywhere in terms of valuation and in sales in the single family space. We're seeing declines everywhere on that. And the thing is, don't panic, hang on, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate. Wait.
Yeah.
Very forgiving, right?
Bro, I say that every day.
Very forgiving, man. I looked at that, and it was literally, for me, it was almost it was a sign from God to me. When I looked at that, it was like, man, God's telling me, hey, just keep playing the long game. Remember the long game. It was just a reminder.
Yeah.
Because I remember in 2009, Aaron, when I was $100,000 underwater. Now, mind you, in 2009, I knew nothing about what I know today. I didn't know about syndication. I didn't know how to run a business, which is some of the things I want to talk about today. It's about the 4 main pillars of business. I didn't know any of this stuff. So my kids were all small, and when I had a vacancy, I was the one that was filling them. I was the one going there to paint. I was the one going there to take out the garbage. I was the maintenance. I was it, brother.
I've been there. The garbage man, the janitor, the leasing agent, and the owner, and the borrower, and like,
dude, everything, man.
Your tenants are like, you don't own this building, bro. Why are you cleaning out my toilet if you're so successful? Like
and everything. And I look at that as my school, right? I quickly learned that, hey, I'm doing something wrong. How is this? I met a guy named Jay, and he had a full-time job, and he owned like 40 doors in a town in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area, in the Poconos. And I was like, dude, how are you doing this? You got a full-time job. I'm Mr. Entrepreneur, yet I how? Right? But it was my mindset, right? It was my mindset on how I viewed business. I didn't have a model. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't really understand business. I was just doing it because everyone else was doing it. And I was more of a solopreneur, and I wasn't building a business. Now I'm building a business. I'm building a company. I'm building something that functions even if I'm not here.
That's what a business is. I realized for years, I built my business the wrong way, and kind of built it around me in a sense. And we have a gap here. I'll do it, right? I'll fill in the gaps. I'll just work more hours. I'll figure out how to do YouTube marketing. Instead of hiring a company to do it, I bought a course on it and figured I was going to now be a YouTube marketer, and I was going to, figure out how to do all the back end computer stuff, which I'm terrible with. But that's just, a small example of something. I'm not a good computer analytical marketing guy. You don't want to hire me to create your back office marketing strategy on social media. It's very in-depth, very technical. That's not me. You put me on stage, give me a microphone, put me in front of people. I'm a public speaker, and more on the marketing, branding, big picture side. But yeah, and you got to recognize your strengths and weaknesses. Now, getting started in business is tough because you're like, well, I can't afford to hire a marketing person, the money's not coming in. But there's always ways to kind of learn how to do something pretty well, and then give it off to someone that you can pay a very low wage for. I always say, if I could pay someone $12 to $20 an hour to do this, or even on Upwork, maybe $8 an hour, then I shouldn't be doing it. Right. And that's my rule of thumb. Now, there is a period of time where you kind of need to do something to figure out how it fits into your business. What is my process? If someone downloads an ebook and inputs their phone number, what is the process then to connect with them? How do we, touch them? Is it an emails, phone call? What's the process? So you have to know your process. But then once that's in place, if you can hire someone for $12 an hour to make the initial phone calls or whatnot, then do that. That's what I've of course done in my business. But it takes time to, you have to kind of build up your systems and create some type of income as well to start to afford those services. But it's the bit of the chicken and the egg, because if you don't hire the right people and develop the processes the right way, then you're not going to run a profitable business. So it is
100%,
unique in that sense. But I liked what you were saying about the 4 pillars of business. I try to have 4 pillars in my life, and I'm trying to remember what those are right now. I haven't been really going over it, but I remember like a year ago, I was talking to my wife, like we need to have 4 pillars. I think it was church and exercise, going out without our son, and I'm thinking of my 4th pillar. Travel was what we wanted. But anyway, let's focus on your 4 pillars of business. And what are those for you?
So these are not my 4 pillars of business. These are the 4 pillars in business, right? So these are the 4 phases of business, right? And going to what you said, you just shared something, right? There's four phases in business, and you have the first phase is the launch phase. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like this one, like yours and mine, and people like us, right, that are business people and winning and doing this stuff, doing real estate and buying businesses and doing things in business. And we always talk about building a team, right? You just alluded to that, building a team. If you can have someone that's building a team. Well, in the launch phase, there's 4 phases in business, which is a launch phase. A lot of times we hear things in different podcasts. Hey, your team, dude, I believe in my team. I love my team, because without my team, I can't do what I do. There's no way that I can buy a 57-unit apartment building and execute and increase the rents by 30% within 6 months and have it stabilize and collect the rents. And I can't do that by myself, right? It's just the way I could do that by myself.
It's not possible.
It's impossible. It's just that would be all I do, and I would hate this business if I was doing it by myself.
Yeah.
However, we tend to talk in terms of, oh, you should have a team and a team and a team. But at the beginning stages, if you recall when you started your business, Aaron, you couldn't afford to have a team, right? You can't afford to have a team. When I did my first, I remember, I'll share this quick story with you. I did my first flip. And my first flip, I bought it in November, and we're in the Poconos, and it was a heavy rehab, and I put stuff in there thinking, HGTV, right? So just luckily I bought that thing for 15 grand, and I negotiated such a sweet deal. HGTV, right? So my wife and I went, we did barn sink, all this craziness, right? In a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom ranch,
right?
And I remember I was going to a meeting one night, and I was in my black and white suit, and it was February at this point, and we had one of those strange 2 days in the month of February where it hit 55, 57 degrees.
Yeah.
Snow was melting. And I said, holy crap, we're going to take this opportunity and we're going to paint the exterior, because this is it. We're going to paint. So I ran to the paint store, got the paint, got the guy. But now by 4:00 it's dark, right? It's winter, right? 4:00 it's dark out here. So I got there,
cold again,
and it's cold again, right? And this is the time the painters, we got all the stuff to him, and he's there. I remember being out there in the mud because we had snow on the floor. It was melting, so now it's muddy. I'm in my black and white suit, so and my painter is spraying, and I'm holding the light.
Right.
I'm holding the light so we can execute on this thing, right? I'm all muddied. I'm dressed up. My shoes are muddy. My suit's muddy. I didn't care. I was going to execute on that thing. So a lot of time in the launch phase, when you're launching, which is phase number 1, you have to do what you have to do. You literally have to get muddy and dirty, and you have to do what you have to do. You're everything. You're the secretary. You're answering the phone. You're doing it. So that's phase number 1. Then phase number 2 is the growth stage. Right. So once you launch and you get a little bit momentum, now you start getting clients, or you start getting leads, and your business starts to grow. Or you maybe, in our business in real estate, now you maybe have a couple of duplexes under your belt. You maybe have a couple of people that are running and doing maintenance work for you. You kind of have a little bit of a network, and your business is growing. You're kind of creating a name for yourself,
right?
And people are sending you deals. You're working with wholesalers. You're working with some bridge lenders, and you're getting things kind of going. What happens is, you have a question for me? It seems like you wanted to ask.
No. I was just yawning. I had a late night. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. What happens is, at this point, is that most people want to skip a phase 3.
Okay.
And they want to go to phase 4, which is the scale phase.
Right? Where the money starts rolling in.
Yeah. So people, and listen, I'm guilty of this, brother. Like, I'm guilty of trying to skip phase 2 and going straight to phase 4. And and that's the scale phase, when your business starts to scale and you have systems in place, and you could just turn up the marketing, turn up these things, and your business kind of starts running like a machine.
Right.
Well, what happens is, if you skip phase 3 and you try to go to phase 4, all it does is, there's a saying in business, and it says, most businesses don't die of starvation. They die of what's the word? Suffocation, right? Of too much, right?
So, I could see that. Yeah.
Right. Too much, because they don't have the business, they don't have the systems in place.
Right.
So phase 3 is setting constraints in your business before you scale. So what could that look like? And we right, and I'm going to talk for our business here, in our business. So we're one of the biggest flippers. In 2021, we were the biggest flipper in our market.
Nice.
Right. We bought and hold, and it was the right time to do it, right? Like, the market was it was a lot of money to be made in the market. We did fantastic.
Yeah.
And but in 2022, we slowed down. And now at the end of 2022, with the market slowing down, interest rates going up, we're looking at our business and we're saying, okay, we're going to set some new constraints in our business. For example, hey, the market shifted, right? We can't do what we did in 21 or in 22 or early in 22. It's not going to work in 23. It's just not. Right. We have to set new constraints. So new constraints for us are, hey, yeah, we'll do a flip if we can do it it's a light rehab. We can go put lipstick, paint it, light rehab in 2-3 weeks. Yeah. We can make 60,000 or more net profit. Right. Yeah. And we can be out. Those are the constraints. If it doesn't meet those constraints and someone brings us a deal, or our marketing, we got a deal that fits that constraint, we're going to just sell it to another investor. Wholesale that contract.
You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of similarities in our business model. We do the same thing because we were flipping houses for many years, and the market shifted. We actually slowed down on flipping before you guys. We really focused a lot on wholesaling in 2016, 2017, 2018. And that started probably around 2015, actually, because it was a gold mine. I remember going to the sheriff sale auctions in Newark, New Jersey in 2015. And this was before a lot of people were showing up. And there was probably about 6 or 7 people that were really bidding and buying properties, and maybe another, dozen or two that were just kind of spectators. So it was pretty easy to talk to those 6 or 7 other investors. And there was so much inventory. It was like hundreds of properties. Our biggest challenge was underwriting all these deals within, the hours or two you have, because the list would be online, but it would be like 300 properties. And when it finally got to the chopping block the day of, it would be more like 70 properties, which is still a ton. If you're talking about having like 6 to 10 real buyers in the room, and there's 70 properties being auctioned that day, like, guys, we don't have to compete with each other. We can, now we didn't do this, of course, because it is illegal to talk to the other bidders at the sheriff sale auction, but there were some people that were communicating with them, and you're getting your own property and working in with the other bidders.
And working it out.
Yeah. So like, you guys get this one, we'll get that one. And, so it was amazing that during that time, and a lot of those people too, I still am in touch with, because we're running the same race. We really should keep in touch in a lot of ways. So it was great though. Great time to wholesale properties. And we wholesaled over 100 properties over that 2 to 3 year period from like 2015 to 2018. And we made over $1 million of net wholesale profits after expenses and everything like that. So just really making hay while the sun shine. And our business was extremely profitable, very cash heavy. And of course, we got nailed on taxes at the end of the year because we did so well. And we're flipping houses at the same time and kind of making our mistakes there also. But it was a phenomenal time. But then we realized at the end of the year, we're like, wait a minute, we're not really following our initial business model of syndicating apartment buildings. See, we had bought and sold a 25-unit apartment building around that same time and done very well on it. And I was kind of learning how to raise capital on a grander scale with investors that are looking to invest longer term, people outside the real estate industry. So I had to make a conscious effort to kind of, I was a realtor, I was a wholesaler, I was a fix and flipper. So all my contacts were kind of in the industry. And those investors were good for like a 6-month or a 1-year investment. But quite frankly, people in the industry have higher demands on their return on investment and expect to put the capital to work for a shorter amount of time. People outside the industry that invest with us now, doctors, lawyers, school teachers, firefighters, business executives, they are looking to just invest capital for the long term, build wealth for themselves and their family, and understand it's a kind of a long game, the investment strategy. So those are better investors for a real estate syndication, which we run now. So I had to make a conscious effort to kind of transition our business from making hay while the sun shined, wholesaling a lot of properties, fix and flipping properties when the deals were there. And then around 2018, everyone and their mom was at the sheriff sale auctions. Yep. They were bidding up crazy numbers. They didn't make sense. And we were like, you guys are not going to do well on this. Now, the market did so well over the next 4 years. I think a lot of those people that overbid just got saved by the market.
The market saved them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, listen, I probably got saved here and there on a couple deals as well. But the bottom line is, we saw the writing on the wall. We're like, you guys are paying way too much for these properties. We knew what the good deals were. We were here 3 years ago getting those deals. And now you guys are going to lose your shirt on this. So we kind of sat back and stopped going to the auctions because quite frankly, it's a waste of time at that point. And really double down on the syndication space, recognizing, wow, we fixed and flipped 50 properties, 47 of them did really well. 3 were total stinkers and can wipe out the profit on, these other, so we realized, wait a minute, you can make money flipping houses, but you can also lose money pretty heavy too, and when you lose on high-end flips, which we were struggling on, you lose big, now we always made sure to pay our investors. So they got a 12% annualized return on their investment, no matter what we did over here. If we hired the wrong contractor and didn't make money on the flip, our investors still got paid, still got the return. So, it was important to make sure of that, but we recognized too, hey, you can do well flipping, but you can also do poorly, and you can wipe out a lot of those gains if you do poorly here. And also,
so how did you, quick question for you is what did you do to pivot from when you were doing that, you were doing that volume of wholesales to pivot to strictly syndication apartments, right? Because we knew all along, for us, we kind of knew all along we were buying and flipping, but at the same time, we were building our apartment building portfolio. So we were doing both simultaneously. Hey, we got to pay the bills, we got to meet we got to pay payroll, right? And we're also syndicating here on the side, at the same time, and building this arm because we knew this party wasn't going to end. But how was that for you, moving from just stopping one to the other?
It was tough. It was really tough. And we had to consciously take a haircut on income as well, because when you start focusing on a real estate syndication, first of all, I couldn't keep wholesaling 100 deals in a year. I couldn't fix and flip, a dozen properties. Now, Seth Martinez, my business partner, handles operations, but we had to consciously decide, hey, we're going to put less time and resources into these things that we're slowing down on the profit end, the wholesale and fix and flips. And we're going to consciously develop our business more as a syndication, which was our original business model. In 2013, we started People's Capital Group. Our goal was to get 1,000 units in the next 3 years. We bought a 25 unit, and then I went to raise capital for another building, and I realized how hard it was, like I was saying, to convert, investors that are investing in 1-year notes with us and fix and flips to now invest in an equity position on an apartment building that has a maturity, a justified gratification. We're getting to the refinance, may take 2 to 3 years to get there. So those are different types of investors with different goals and needs. And generally people completely outside the real estate industry, which quite frankly, my conversation with a doctor about how to invest in real estate is very different from a guy who fixes and flips 5-6 houses a year and has some excess cash to invest. It's a completely different conversation, right? But at the end of the day, the doctor's going to value us a lot more because he's never going to do what we're doing. He's working 67 hours a week in healthcare. He's making a great income there. He's getting nailed on taxes. So we are a good solution for his investment goals, where a fix and flipper, is in the industry and doesn't value what we create our infrastructure as much because, quite frankly, they're in the industry. But, I had to consciously pivot what I was doing with my time, how I was speaking to people, what I was educating on, and for the first year I raised capital, I would talk about raising capital and how to raise capital. And even though I really didn't know much about it at the time, but and that's not how you raise capital. Listen, if you want to sell books and CDs about how to raise capital, talk about how to raise capital. But I was like not understanding how to raise capital for syndication. So I had to teach myself how to raise capital for real estate syndication. We had to develop our management company, our infrastructure better so that it could take buildings that are mismanaged, reposition them quickly, and lease them up for top dollar to refinance in a fast manner. So we had to really build our infrastructure in place. I had to learn a whole new business. And I was like, oh, I'm a fix and flipper and a wholesaler. I've syndicated a building. This will be easy. No, it was selling securities, because that's what I do. I sell security, in a sense, at the end of the day, is very different than fixed and flipping or wholesaling real estate. So I had, it took me 4 years probably to really learn how to speak with investors the right way, how to raise capital in this different space. And I'd say just this year, I've probably started to crack the code, but boy, it's been quite a journey, my friend.
So there is, you just literally shared with me and your audience, how you went through the launch phase, the growth phase when you did 100, and you skipped the constraints phase and you went straight to the scale phase. And then you decided, holy crap, we need to create some constraints because this is not our business. This is not where we're going, right? This is not the direction we want to go. And you and your partner had to create some constraints and some guardrails like, hey, we're not going to do this. This is what we're going to do. We're going to, as per your own words, we're going to syndicate, we're going to raise capital, and we're going to buy this large apartment buildings because this is what we wanted. And a lot of us as investors, I would hear podcasts, and you've probably heard in some of the large podcasts, like, maybe you've had guests here that would tell people, tell newbies like, hey, go ahead, just start with the larger assets. The little ones don't make sense. You've probably heard that. The challenge you have, right? Like the little ones don't make sense. I own a bunch of little ones, and I'm looking at my books right now, and I'm saying, okay, it's time for me to get rid of the little ones. The little ones don't make sense, but I'm there now. Right. I'm here now. I'm not coming from a place of being completely broke. I'm not coming from a place like, hey, my family's going to eat, my mortgage is going to get paid, business is going to go. Like, I have leverage with different things, but I had to get there. So a lot of times we give newbies advice like, hey, go and buy an apartment building, because that's 100% correct. But when you're broke and you don't have any education, you don't have nothing, brother, you got to start. You start small. Start. You got to start.
Just buy a condo. Something like that.
Start. Get some net cash flow coming in and start learning this thing.
I got a call from a woman I know that went to a Grant Cardone conference, and she got really inspired. And I follow Grant because he's the biggest guy in the industry, so you got to follow him. I think he's a bit of boastful for my taste, but I get it. I get what he does. He's a master marketer. So she went to the conference and she's like, I locked up a 1,200 unit apartment building in Florida, and I need to raise $82 million in the next 60 days. And I was like, how much money have you raised in the past? She's like, zero. I was like, how much have you raised so far? She's like, zero. I was like, don't call me. I don't know what to tell you.
What's your track record?
Yeah, what's your track record? What's your marketing budget?
Lenders are going to ask you. Lenders going to want to know,
the lender, right? How are you going to get the loan for this?
How are you going to get a loan for this thing? How are you going to exit it? What team? These are the questions the lenders ask. Who's your team?
Who's going to really invest? I mean, you need some large scale investors to raise $82 million. And you're not going to be talking to school teachers putting $30,000 in their IRA to work. You'll never get there, So it's really the wrong advice. Now I get it. More units under one roof is easier to manage. I'd much rather, own a 20, 50, 100 unit than a 6 unit or a 2 unit. I get it. So yeah, the economies of scale makes sense on paper, but in reality, my first syndication was a 25 unit, which was pretty reasonable. It was also lower price. It was like a 1. I forget what I bought it for, 1.7 or something. So, I put together like 450,000, but it was friends and family, and I exhausted that. And then I was like, all right, I could do this again. And I locked up another 25 unit in the same town, thinking I could just go to friends and family. But the well was dry. They said, listen, perform on this one asset, and then we'll go ahead and do it. So then I called up, all the people I was fixing, flipping, and wholesaling deals with, and said, hey, do you want to invest in a 5-year project? They're like, nope, I do 6-month project. So I realized, wow, this is a whole different space, and the friends and family are only good as far as you can raise capital. They're eventually going to exhaust the well. And it was a great learning experience for us. And we actually lost about $15,000 on due diligence, because we were doing the due diligence, underwriting the deal. This was years ago, about 8 years ago. And we weren't able to close on it because I wasn't able to raise the capital in time. And we did kind of make a decision, where we didn't really lose our full deposit, but we lost about $15,000 on the deal there. And it was a learning experience for us that, hey, you really have to have those relationships in place with those individuals looking to invest in the long term, and be, really watering those relationships and what's the word I'm looking for? Cultivating those relationships, because if you just come to someone and you're like, oh, you have capital to invest, great, here's the deal, wing, bada bing, bada boom, sometimes that'll work. As you get a track record, it's definitely easier. It depends who you're talking to, but for the most part, people want to have a relationship, have a cultivation period where you're getting to know each other, building rapport. Also, the SEC requires that as well. So it's really a process. And the individual who went to the Grant Cardone thing and got inspired and put a 1,200 unit under contract and doesn't have those relationships in place. I mean, heck, she should have been starting those relationships 2 years ago now to raise any type of $80 million capital, and so it's just kind of the wrong way to do it. I've heard people say, you want to raise money, go get a deal first. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong advice. If you go to someone with a deal and like, you got to invest by Thursday, they're going to get turned off, and you might lose that investor forever.
And in addition to that, my friend, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and this is some of my challenges with a lot of these so-called gurus, right? Go and do 100 units. And it's like, dude, you know better. You know what the banks are going to ask you. You know the banks are going to ask you what relationships you have, who's your team, what have you executed, what's your track record, what have you done, why would we trust you with this money? They're going to do their due diligence on you. And if you don't have a track record, this person giving this advice knows. And the other thing to that is, you got to grow into that, right? You got to grow into that. Because you can't tell someone that hasn't bought any real estate. All right, let's just be real, Aaron. You and I both seasoned investors in this business. When you was wholesaling, before you bought that $1.7 million deal, I'm just going to take you back there, okay? Just go back there for a moment. And I would have said to you, hey, Aaron, I have this great deal. I have this great deal for you. It's a 100-unit apartment building in a B-class neighborhood. It's a C-class in a B-class neighborhood.
Nice. And
you got a 25% upside on the rent that it's going to cost you $6 million, but when you're done, it's going to be $10 million. If I would have came to you, talked to you about $6 million when you were just starting in the business and you knew nothing about this language, you hadn't executed on no rehab, you hadn't done any of that, you had no teams in place, none of that. Your mind at that point was going to say, holy crap, that's too big. 6 million. Wow, that sounds great. But at the beginning, you don't initially, unless you've done a lot of personal development work, which I'm going to presuppose that a lot of your listeners have, a lot of mine do, because we both do. That's why we're here, right? I'm supposed we both do. That's why we're here. So, but most people aren't ready to hear $6 million. Most people are conditioned to think that $6 million in debt is bad, and they're going to go, most Americans don't understand how to use debt properly.
Right.
If I would have started talking to you about $6 million right off of Jump Street, your brain would have said, oh shit, no, great. But you haven't grown into that, right? You haven't gotten that confidence. And this is where I think the phases of business, right? Launch, growth, constraints. Now you're growing. Now you start to set some constraints. Like, hey, okay, now I got some experience. Now I know what I'm doing. Boom, buy that duplex, buy those first start, learn how to do it with the little ones.
Yeah.
And now you've experienced it with the little ones. Now you've done maybe a flip here or two. Yeah. Now you can say, okay, I have that confidence. I can go to Aaron and say, hey, Aaron, I got this deal, and I could speak the language. I can speak the language. I can say, I got this deal. This is what we're going to do. Let's partner up on this. Let's get me some investors.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You go to the bank and you can negotiate and speak the language. So anyways, a lot of these gurus, in my opinion, they mean well. I think they really mean well.
Right.
But they got to understand the psychology of human behaviors, man. A human being is not going to start with 6 million, 10 million.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand too, they're running a business and they're selling a product at the end of the day also, right? I mean, part of what they're selling is inspiration and dreams, and that's important, right? It's important to be inspired and get your ass out of bed in the morning and to have a vision and have confidence in yourself and your ability to perform. However, there is also reality, and people, I've seen them lose their deposit on deals, and just, I'll just lock it up and figure it out later because I heard a podcast that told me, and that's not good. That can also turn someone off to the industry who could have been a great, a successful real estate investor, but instead they, had a bad experience off the bat. They bit off more than they could chew. They lost some money, and they're never going to do it again, and so I do think there's a bit of a conflict of interest a lot of times with individuals selling coaching and educational materials. Now, a lot of them are worth the money, and others are overpriced crap. And so you got to recognize what that is. And usually if you go online, if they're any type of big name educator, you can buy the packages used on eBay or something for a fraction of what they're selling at the event. So, but I've also met people that have done like the Fortune Builders program, which is probably one of the most in-depth educational programs. They're like, a Fortune 500 company. They're very well known, but they're not cheap. They're really expensive. And I've met people that have done the $50,000 coaching package or the $80,000, and they'll come to me with pretty rookie questions.
Fundamentals.
And I'm like, come on, like, you didn't, your $50,000 coach didn't guide you on this, how is that even possible? So, or they buy the package and there's just so much, lease to own, syndication, fix and flip, wholesaling. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do it all because I got the package on how to do it all. So, that's the wrong answer. You got to have a process. You got to have a business model. You got to have a plan. I'm going to do all the markets. No, you got to have a market, an actual product you're buying. So, and I get it because, the real estate industry, it has its ups and downs. You'll have a really good year, then you have a slow year. So selling educational material is a great business model. And I completely understand it as an entrepreneur. And maybe I'm just jealous, but we don't sell, we don't sell the coaching for that reason, right? I just feel like, man, I'm either going to, invite you to invest with us and sell you a security, an investment opportunity in one of our buildings, or am I selling, the recipe on how to do it and everything, and all the flour and everything to make it, no, I'm selling a finished pizza. I'm not selling the flour and the crust and the dough. And no, I'm selling you a finished pizza. Here it is. If you want to go make your own pizza, then, go to the supermarket and buy those, but like that, you're selling one or the other. So that's kind of how I feel about the education space, but I get it. I understand why people do it. And there are a lot of people that come to me and say, do you offer mentorships or education and things like that? And I say, nah, I just focus on helping people invest in real estate. That's my goal.
You said something really key there, Aaron, and I'd like to share this with you and your audience. I interviewed someone on my podcast, Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast here a week ago. And this gentleman has recorded 740 episodes. He's in the last few years. I know. That's super impressive, right? Super impressive. And I asked him this one question. I actually did this last week twice because I asked my financial planner, my personal financial planner. I had him on my podcast and I said to him, I asked him a similar question, and I got the same answer. I asked my financial planner, I said, in your 33 years of dealing with wealthy people, dealing with rich people, setting up trusts, all these elaborate, I learned something brand new from my financial planner I never had heard before, and it was a reverse 1031. Have you ever heard of that? I'd never heard of it.
No.
Dude, he just did it on a property he bought, and I'll share that with you in a moment, because I'm going to be calling him because I'm thinking, I'll share it with you in a moment. And I asked him the question. I said, hey, in your 33 years of being a financial planner, and what is the one common thing you have found among self-made millionaires, not the people born with a silver spoon, not people like you and I, self-made, right? We've kind of done it, right? Self-made millionaires. What's the common theme? Then I asked Sam, right? And I had him on my podcast. He recorded 740, and I said, Sam, you've recorded 740 people like myself, different entrepreneurs, different people in real estate. What is the common thing of the high achievers, the three top things you've learned? You said it a moment ago, right? These people go to these educational courses, so they'll go to Fortune Builders, you said, and they give them all this information. There's so many lanes to play, and they can't pick. They're going to do it all. And we both know how that is a recipe for disaster. And they both said one thing. Both of them said one thing. Emmerich said to me, my financial planner said to me, focus. He said, my self-made wealthiest people in his 33 years, clients, wealthiest people. He said, they focus, and they just focus, and they become so good at that one thing that before they put their head down and they just do that thing before they just keep improving. They're not afraid to invest in themselves. They're not afraid to invest in their team and pay people well, right? I mean, stuff we've been talking about here, right? They're not afraid to do this stuff. And before they know, they put their head up, and they're the best in the world at what they do. They're the best in the country in their industry. They're the best at whatever it is that they're doing. They're the best at what they do because they focus. Right. They focus. And that's another topic that I speak, because I'm also a speaker, and I speak on the three forces of creation. And the first force is focus. And Sam, when I asked him, what are the three top things you've learned? And he said to me, top three things I've learned from the highest and the most consistent message, focus. Focus, constraints, right? Going back to phase number 3 of the 3 main constraints. We say no to more things than we say yes to, because it doesn't fit what we are currently focused on.
Right. The word no has made me a lot more than the word yes in this business.
Right. We say no to more things than we do say yes. Right. We're setting certain constraints in our business right now where we like I shared with you, if something comes across our production line and it meets these criteria, that's the only way we're going to do it and rehab it and put it back on the market, in the retail market. If it does not, it stays in the production line and it just keeps going, and we sell it to someone else. Right. If from that production line we got a 25, 30 unit, 50 unit, we pick that out and that's ours. We're gonna do that deal. But that's the only things that we're doing. And we're shredding out the 2s and the 3s from our portfolio. And we're there now, but we are here now. We're not. We didn't start that way. We're here now where we can say, okay, we don't want the 2s anymore because they're not as profitable as the 50s and the 100s.
I'm not selling any of my real estate. I like my 2s and my 3s and my 6s. I got some single family homes. I got some condos. I scooped them up for 50 grand at auction 5 years ago. They're worth 3 times that now. It's like, why sell? Even if I own some condos and they don't really cash flow all that much. I probably break even on them, but the equity in there is just like phenomenal. So, if I can refinance a little bit every few years or so, and the tenants are paying on the mortgage, they kind of pretty much break even, make a little profit, few bucks here or there. But it's crazy, the single family homes I own as well. Just the equity growth in them has been phenomenal because we bought them at the right time in the market. We've maintained them well. So my motto is kind of like never sell, eventually hand it down to my heirs, my son, who you're saying being born with a silver spoon in my mouth. That's my biggest concern on my son, handing him $100 million real estate portfolio and teaching him modesty.
Let me tell you, I woke up one day. I'll share the story with you, right? I woke up one day. So my kids are older. My wife and I started really young. We had our first one at 18 and 19. We have 4 kids. My oldest is 26. He's going to be 27 now in February. We were kids. We all grew up together, basically. And one day I woke up about, I'm going to say 12 years ago. And I woke up and I look around and the kids are playing video games. They were all small, right? They were all smaller. Kids playing video games. We have this nice, we have a modest house. It's not the house that I envisioned for my wife and I. I have bigger visions, bigger aspirations for the future for us. But we have a nice house. We have a pool, 3.5 acres,
nice.
Big yard, and all this with basketball court and all these nice things. And one day I looked around and I'm like, I've been working since I was 11 years old in New York City. I grew up in the hood. I grew up, poor, having nothing. And I look around and I'm like, these kids are so comfortable,
Yeah, right.
Games. I mean, they have the Xbox, they have the Wii, they have all of these things and all of these. Yeah. And I said, you know what? And I got to thinking, I was like, how am I going to teach my kids work ethic? How am I going to teach them how, right? Because I struggled with that. I don't want to raise entitled brats. Yeah. And I was, my office here where I rent my office, at the time, I went to the owner, which was one of my first mentors. She's the biggest investor in the area. And I went to her and I said, and the property manager at the time, and I was like, hey, who's doing the cleaning of the building? Right? Because they're not doing a good job. How about if I bring my kids and I have my kids clean the bathrooms, clean the toilets, vacuum once a week, and we pay them. And Kathy, being who she was like, absolutely, I love that idea. So she gave us this. I started a cleaning company just to teach the kids, literally just to teach my kids. And in this process, my kids learned so much. So my daughter, my oldest son, bought his first car from the money he saved from the cleaning company.
Wow.
So did my daughter.
Yeah.
And my son graduated from Penn State. My son graduated from Penn State. He bought his first car, which just crapped on him. He graduated in 2020 with business major from Penn State. And he bought his car, which just crapped on him from that business. And that was the only way I figured it was the way I thought of like, hey, how can I teach my kids work ethic? Yeah. But they learned so much, as we talk about it now, they learned so much, Aaron, about work ethic, because here they were literally mopping the floors, cleaning the toilets, cleaning the urinals. And it taught them so much humility.
Right.
When we go on vacation, now when we go on cruises and we go to these nice resorts, and they value those people that are cleaning. They thank you. They hold the door for them because they remembered what it was like to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to impress upon your children is work ethic, and also being hungry, like the desire to be successful. I do worry about a lot of the talking heads and social media and other, like who kind of make wealth or success is something like that. Oh, you're working for the man, or like, being wealthy isn't cool anymore. Being rich is, and like I don't like that. I don't like that. I know, right?
Sorry, man. Yo, listen, man. Listen, being wealthy isn't cool anymore.
Right.
Dude, try being freaking poor. Excuse my language, man. Try being poor. Listen, my mom came pregnant here with me to the United States, brother.
Yeah.
When we talk, and here's my message to all of those guys, if they're listening, because I hope they're listening, because I got a message for them right now.
Yeah.
My mom came pregnant with me here in 1978 with me. She sent me back to Dominican Republic. In Dominican Republic, and I want you to picture this, and I want your audience to picture this. When you think of third world countries, when you see those TVs on TV where those kids are running around without a shirt, in their underwears, without shoes.
Yeah.
Brother, we didn't have any running water in my house. I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning at 3, 4 years old with my grandma with a gallon of water to walk a half a block to fill water, to fill a 50-gallon tank. So we have water to flush the toilet with for the day, and water to brush our teeth and cook with for the day. We talk about poverty. Yeah, it may not be cool for the woke and blah, blah, blah bull crap.
Yeah.
Try being that.
Right.
Try, like, live that way. Live that way for a minute. When it rained, we literally had to put buckets, Aaron, in, because we had tin. Our roof was made out of tin. So what happens in the Caribbean when the sun hits the tin, it beams on it. You're in the Caribbean. It makes little holes on the roof. So when it rains inside the house. You got drops.
Right.
So we literally had to put buckets, pots, and pans around the house. And then when they filled, we would take them out to the backyard and put them back.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So you want to talk about, like, someone's trying to shame me because, or someone's trying to make me feel guilty. Screw you. Try living like that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. This side having the ability to have things and be able to take my family and be able to provide my family with a home where water doesn't leak, be able to pay my mother's rent every month, be able to provide a service, be able to be of value to the community is much, much better than being broke and not having money to get on the train on the New York City subways, because I've been there too.
Yeah, or saying you're a victim with your iPhone and you're, living in your mom's basement.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Try living in a third world country. Try living. Go to Cuba, where food is portioned and rationed. I know a lot of Cubans. My mom's been to Cuba, and she's told, dude, in Cuba, because we can't go to Cuba anymore, Americans. So whatever the thing was, Obama opened it up and it's closed up again. But my mom went and she said to me, we're Dominican, right? So we're all the Caribbean. And so she would go, when she went twice, she would go with a lot of clothes, right? And then she would give it to the people. She said they would go to the resorts. And in order to give it to them, she would have to fill out a form for the government to let them know what she gave them, brother. It was crazy. Ridiculous. She said there would be so much food at the resorts where they would stay. Just to this, there'd be so much food at the resorts where they would stay. And the people would not dare. They threw the food away. They would not dare to touch the food and eat it. So my mom, she shares with me, they would take food, like, to go on these tours in the buses. And so she would, because she's a diabetic, she would take food with her. And she would use it as an excuse. Right. And then while she was in the bus, she would say to the employees, here, guys, come eat, just eat whatever you want. Right. Because they don't have that ability to do that. So you want to talk about poverty, man? Try living like that. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Anyone that complains about America and how, they're a victim here and it's so hard, and they're, living off their parents basically. And, it's like, you should go live in a third world country for some time and really experience true poverty, true hardship, to just get a grasp on reality and how good we have it here. And, for the people that died for these freedoms and our ability to say, oh, America, and absolutely, that's an important thing in our democracy, to be able to recognize our flaws and in our system and in capitalism and try to guide it in the right way. But I mean, capitalism has lifted the most amount of people out of poverty ever in history. I'm one of them. Exactly. Right here. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And now there's like this push for socialism. It's the scariest freaking thing. If you open a history book and look at where socialism and communism has landed people, millions of deaths, millions. So, that's a whole other podcast. But anyway, my friend, we're definitely going long here. I love our conversation. I love what we're talking about. We touched a little bit on politics here and talked about work ethic, how to stay focused in your business. So the most important thing is focus, to be the best at what you do and every day improve yourself to get there. And don't bite off more than you could chew either, right? And work through those 4 phases of business that we all struggle with. And and then sometimes you're in the middle of it and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, I know I need to hire a guy to do this, but I can't afford to hire him, but I hate doing it. How am I going to figure this out? And but generally, if you put your head down, you focus and you do what you need to do,
I also took out some credit cards to help with those costs along the way.
Me too.
Run your business, get it off the ground. But that's the name of the game. But really enlightening podcast here. I love what we're talking about, Martin. But we are out of time here. So how can people reach you and learn more about what you do?
Hey, just I'm on social media, right? So you can check out my Instagram, The Elite Strategist. You could just look me up and make sure you check out my podcast. I'm talking about this kind of stuff. I'm going to have Aaron on my podcast here soon. And Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast, although it is Latinos in Real Estate Investing, it's not Latinos, it's in English. I just recently I got invited to a podcast in Spanish, and my Spanish was horrible, man. It was more Spanglish. It was more English and Spanish. I was talking to English and Spanish because I'm, first-born generation American, right? So that's what we speak at home is English mostly. So my Spanish is a little rusty. So go check out Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast and check out my YouTube channel and the Elite Strategist and Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, Martin, really looking forward to being on your show in the next couple of weeks. I'm very excited there. And of course, to our listeners who are enjoying these episodes, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you can get more of them, and the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube there. And of course, our website, peoplescapitalgroup.com, has all of our episodes of all of our 100+ podcasts and weekly webinars that I do as well. So I come out with usually a new webinar almost every single week on different topics, different guests. So check that out, our website, peoplescapitalgroup.com. It's all free. We don't sell coaching or education like that. We just help people invest in real estate. So you can learn more at peoplescapitalgroup.com. But thank you so much, Mark, for coming. I really enjoyed this conversation, my friend.
Me too, brother. Me too. Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, man. And thank you for your listeners for staying to the end.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Have a good day, my friend.
You too, brother.